Hello, I want to talk to you in this video about the field experience project that you are going to do for the Exceptional Child in the Classroom course. To find this activity, go to Activities, and this is going to be found under the assignment title, Field Experience Log Sheet. Now, in this Field Experience Log Sheet video, I am going to explain to you the project that you have to do for this course, and I'm going to explain to you how to fill out the log sheet and then how to compile your paper and submit that paper as your final project. I'm also going to explain to you about working with an IEP, creating an IEP for the student in which you are observing, and I'm going to explain to you the internship that you will be doing with the co-op in this project. Okay, so first of all, I want to point out to you that this whole entire project is not due until week 16. It will be due on Wednesday of week 16. However, this Saturday, I want you to post a statement after you have viewed the video of my explaining this to you, after you have reviewed the document that has the instructions, after you have reviewed the sample paper and the log sheet. I want you to then write a statement explaining in your own words your understanding of this particular field experience project. This statement is due this Saturday by 11:59 p.m. and it is to be set up in MLA format. If you do not set this up in MLA format, I will take points off. You will only get half credit, 10 points out of 20. So MLA format on all Word documents that you submit, unless otherwise instructed. Okay, to find the additional documents, you will find those posted under additional resources. I've already posted the case study paper. This is a sample paper that you can use as a guide when you are preparing to write your own paper. Okay, the first thing that I want to point out to you is the field experience log sheet. For this project, you will be working with a specialist from the educational co-op. You are going to function as an intern at the educational co-op. I had that document. Now I can't find it. I know I pulled it up. There is a document. Okay, I will retrieve that before we get to the end of this video. But there is a document that you are to fill out based on your information that will go back to the co-op, and then they will assign you a specialist. And this specialist will travel with you to the school district so that as you observe this child, they will be there with you. And then when you are formulating an IEP, your individualized education plan for this child, they will be your guide. They will help you figure out how to fill that out, and they can even be there to assist you as you experiment with some of the ideas that you came up with to put on that plan to help that child. Okay, so when you get ready to begin your observations with your specialist, you are going to have to complete, every time you visit and do some observations, you're going to have to complete your log sheet, because I need documentation proving that you were actually there at that given time and you were actually observing this particular child. Okay, so on this log sheet, you're going to begin with your name. You are the candidate for the teacher prep program. Your last name, your first name, your candidate ID. This is your ID number that was given to you in My Ozarka. And then put the semester and the year of this, that you are in this class working on this project. The course prefix, number, and name. And I will show you where that's located. That is located on your field experience instruction sheet. This is the prefix, EDUC. This is the number 2043, and then the course name is Exceptional Child in the Classroom. Now, if you look at this line space, you will only have room to put the prefix, the number, and then you may abbreviate the course title to Exceptional Child. That's perfectly fine. Professor Toon. And then right here, I want to know, what is your degree major? Are you elementary, mid-level? Mid-level is grades 4 through 8. Or are you secondary, grades 7 through 12? The school district information goes right here, the school in which you are observing this child. So I want the school district and then the specific name of that school and what grade level is this child in that you are observing. Now, some of you may end up at another location other than the school district. You and I will need to discuss this privately. If that is the case, if I need to send you to an alternative school or something such as that. But typically, the majority of you are going to be in a school district, in a particular specific school, in one grade level, observing one child. When it comes to this section right here, I need to know the task description. In other words, if you are there observing, then you can just put right here, observing the child, and you can check mark journal, because right here you're going to be observing this child. When you observe this child, you're going to be journaling and writing down some information that you see this child doing. For example, if the teacher's giving instructions and this child is totally not listening, you need to jot that down. What is it about this child that is causing him to not be able to pay attention? This is going to come along in your reflection. So after you journal, then you may get home and you may start reading your text material, and you may start thinking about that child and reflecting on the notes that you took over that child, and you might discover that, okay, this child has severe ADD and his attention span is very short, and he cannot just sit there and listen to a teacher give verbal instructions. He has to have more stimulation. So you might, first of all, you're journaling, and then you're coming back with those same journal entries, and you're doing a reflection. You might go in and observe several different dates and then come back and do some reflection later. But nonetheless, when you write your task description right here and you date it, how many hours were spent, maybe you observe him an hour at a time on several different days. You would put the date and how many hours you spent. This is the signature of the teacher of that classroom. And then I want you to print their name because I can't always read people's signatures. And then the title, classroom teacher. Now, if you happen to be doing a reflection, then I want you to write the date, the hours spent as you are reflecting, or maybe you just spend a half an hour reflecting. Then your signature will go here because this is you doing the reflection. And then you will print your name, and your title is student. Okay? And then when you are working on the presentation or the paper, the same thing. It would be how much time, what date did you work on the paper, how many hours did you spend, and your signature, and then your printed name, and then again the student. So indicate to me what you are working on in this, and make sure that you date it and put the hours spent, get the signature, the name, and then the title. Okay, so you have 3 sections of this. And that doesn't mean that that's 3 different days. That just means I've divided it into 3 different sections. Perhaps you can do your reflection, your journaling and observations all in one section. Do your reflection and coming up with your IEP. If you are reflecting with your specialist from the co-op, and your specialist is helping you formulate an IEP for that child, then that specialist will need to put their signature, print their name, and then their title is specialist. Okay, and you can abbreviate that. So the specialist is also going to come in handy as you work on this, because they will not be writing your paper for you and submitting your presentation in this paper, but they can help you in your reflection as you are formulating and creating your IEP for that child. And even reflecting on when you implemented the elements from the IEP, what kind of difference did it make in that child and his learning capacities and understanding capabilities? So they can help you in that as well. Okay, so as you work through your log sheet, you're keeping all of the information, and again, you can divide it into whatever 3 sections works best for you. Okay, then right here, each time you're going to log how many hours were spent on each specific task on the specific days, and then down here I want the total amount of hours. You're required to spend 10 hours observing the child. Please spend no more than 15 hours on the whole entire total project, from the reflection to the presentation of the paper. Right here is for your signature. Now you will have to print this out, and you will have to handwrite because we will have to have their signatures and so forth. So you will print this out, and then you, at the very end, when you've totaled up all of your hours, you sign it. This, where it says instructor signature, that is for me to sign it once I get it turned in to me. And the partnership coordinator signature, this is going to be the co-op specialist will sign off saying that she has worked with you or he has worked with you this many hours on this particular project. So at the end, you sign here, and the co-op specialist will sign here. And then once I receive the document, I will sign here and put this in your file. Okay. So that is your log sheet. Now let's go over the assignment sheet that is also going to be posted in the additional resources under this particular project in week 1. For your field experience project, you're going to observe and work with a child who seems to struggle in school. This child might struggle because he's severely disabled, He has some kind of disability that is hindering him from functioning at full educational capacity. So it's up to you to observe the child long enough to figure out what is probably wrong with the child, and then come up with some kind of assistance on his IEP plan that will help this child to improve. And then you will spend some time working with this child. It might be that you can spend 5 hours observing him and figuring out his case scenario, and then you can spend 5 hours working with that child. Now, that's not all in one day, but you would come back several different times, observe him 5 different days for an hour at a time, and then come back and work with him anywhere from a half an hour at a time to a full hour at a time. Probably half an hour of working with him is best, because children beyond that time frame, you tend to lose them. Okay, so you're going to be observing and working with this child. You're going to map out a chart of his struggles. So when you are observing, you're journaling and you're jotting down and figure out what are his struggles. Does he struggle more when he comes to school and he's had a bad night at home or a rocky morning at home? So begin to chart his struggles and determine the reasons for those struggles that you seem to see that this student is displaying. You will use the information that you find in the textbook as a guide to helping you determine the reasons for this child's study. Keep in mind that the student may suffer from some type of emotional or academic distress. The student could actually be an extremely advanced and gifted student, and this student is becoming bored with the regular classroom because he's not being stimulated and challenged academically. Everything seems to be mundane and easy for him to do, and his mind might begin to think, why should I even bother? This is so easy. I don't even want to do it. When a student gets to that point, they become frustrated with their learning experiences, and then they begin to create problems in the classroom, problems for the teacher as well as problems for all the other students in the class. So think about the students, observe. Your first day of observations might just be scoping out which child do I see that needs a little additional help for whichever direction or reason, and which one would I like to work with. Of course, your co-op specialist will also be a good person to help you pick out the right child. The classroom teacher can give you some insight too on which child would be a really good candidate for you to work with. To help you connect with a child and observe, and to help you understand the best methods for helping this child, you will be partnered with the educational co-op. If you are in there observing a child and you have some questions, your educational co-op specialist is your person to go to first, and then certainly you can contact me if you need further clarification on the project, or if you need a little bit of insight with particular symptoms that a child is displaying. A Google Docs is being shared with you for this assignment. This is a live document in which you're going to list the information in the first 3 columns. The intern coordinator at the co-op is going to then take this live document and look at all of the signatures, all of the people that have signed up for this project, as well as the locations that you all have selected, and she's going to assign you with a co-op specialist to help best meet your needs. Now, to access this Google Docs, you will need to activate your Google account. Every single student in Ozarka College has access to a Google email account through My Ozarka, and you're going to use the same username and password as you use in My Ozarka. It's already set up. You just have to access it and activate it. This Google Doc that I'm talking about is to be completed by the end of week 1. Now, you don't have to submit it anywhere. You can just share it back with me. I will share it with you and you can share it back with me, but I can actually see as soon as someone logs into it, I can access that. As soon as someone signs some information in there, posts some information, I can go in and retrieve it and check it daily. So you will not be submitting this. You just need to fill out the first 3 sections of information. I will show you. I have that document pulled up right here in my Google Drive. Okay, so to retrieve that, I went to my Ozarka Google account, and these dots right here that says Google Apps, it kind of looks like a little calculator or something, the little buttons. Okay, so if you click on that and you open Google Drive, the drive has the little 3-colored triangle, yellow, green, and blue. This is the live document, the Exceptional Child Internship. So when you click on that document, this is what the document looks like. So if I were, okay, why did that do that? Okay, so if I were working in this, I would put my name right here. And I would put my email address. Okay, and the town in which I live is Batesville. Okay, so once I put that there, then you should all be able to retrieve that live document. You will not put anything in these 2 columns. This is what the educational co-op intern coordinator is going to fill out. This person, they are going to select the school based on what town do you live in. Now, let's say I live in Batesville, but I am willing to also go to Cave City School. Well, then I would put Cave City. I would put Batesville and Cave City, okay? If you happen to live in Ash Flat and you want to go to Highland and you're thinking, you know, I could do Highland and I could also do Melbourne. So it's okay to put 2 places. If you want to put 2 locations, that would give them a better choice. Put your first one on top though. Just don't put a whole lot of choices. Just put one specifically, and then if you want to put an additional, put a second one underneath. Okay, so please reach out to me if you have any questions about that. Now let's go back to our assignment sheet. I want this Google Docs, these 3 columns to be completed by each one of you no later than this Saturday. Okay, this Saturday of week 1. Okay, after you observe, let's go back to the actual project that you're doing. After you observe this child, you're going to construct a chart of the behaviors and the work levels of this child. And you're going to determine the causes and the struggles. And then you're going to develop an IEP for the student that will allow him to be a little more successful in the classroom, or a whole lot more successful. You will then finally, once you implement that IEP, you're going to work with that child utilizing those tips those ideas that you wrote down on his IEP, you'll begin implementing those with him as he's studying and doing his lessons in school, and you're working with him and helping him. At the end of all of this, you will then construct a well-developed essay in MLA format that explains the observations of the student. And by that, I mean, what did you see when you observed this child? Get as much background information on this child as you can from the classroom teacher. Perhaps the teacher can clue you in that this child comes from a single parent home. He's being raised by his mother, who works all of the time and has 5 other children in the home and has to divide her time among work, household chores, and 6 children. Okay, so whatever background information you can gather at the front end of the observations on this child, it will help you understand this child and what this child's needs are. This child may just have some emotional disabilities because he is hungry for attention, and he just needs that figure in his life that is giving him focused attention. Okay, so you're going to, first of all, in the first part of your essay, you're going to explain the observations of this child and what you have learned about this child and his situation. Then you're going to diagnose the student's struggles. What are his specific struggles? And then you're going to, once you diagnose those, back it up and provide examples of proof. If you say he has an attention deficit disorder, he has difficulty paying attention. Okay, so if he has ADD, what characteristics did you see in him that convinced you he had ADD? Okay, the student was constantly moving around in his seat, occasionally would just pop up out of his seat and walk around the room while the teacher is giving instructions. Okay, that is a definite example of a child demonstrating ADD. He can't sit there, he's got to get up. That would actually be ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Okay, the IEP suggestions, I want you to list out those suggestions, and then I want you to discuss how you began to implement those suggestions and the differences that it made in that student when you implemented those suggestions. In the paper, I want you to also include your analysis of that IEP that you developed. Was it successful? Were some parts of it successful and some didn't seem to work? Why was it successful and why did it not seem to work? So analyze it, discuss it, and explain it. Give your insight. As you are developing this paper, you may also include graphs, charts, arrows, pictures, etc. Anything with some kind of graphic visual that will help the reader understand what you are saying, or you took this child through these steps and that's where the arrows come in, and you directed the child to this and then to this, and the differences that it made. Within the essay, you definitely want to express the student's struggles, diagnosis, and planned IEP. You must include the IEP and any other items that you use in working with the students. These are going to be considered the artifacts, and you will upload all of your artifacts along with your paper. The artifacts will be attached at the end of your paper. So after you complete the conclusion section and the works cited section of your paper, then you will put on the back of that each one of the artifacts, beginning with the IEP that you constructed, and then maybe there are some work samples. It may be before IEP work sample and after IEP work sample. Make sure that you label your work samples, however, so that I'll know what you are doing. any artifact like that you can gather that the child worked on or that you used in working with the child. You will complete the field experience log sheet each time you work on this project. So when you are doing observations, you log it. When you are reflecting on your journals, you log it. Okay, when you're working on the project, you log it. When you're creating the IEP, log it. Okay? You will only have one field experience project for this class, but as you can see, there are several components involved in completing this entire project. Your observations and interactions with the student must be a total of 10 hours. I am including a sample of a student's essay from her research and diagnosis from a few years ago. This student was a teacher's aide in a school system, and she was able, because she was the parapro in that particular school working with that particular student, she was able to have a little more access and a little more hands-on than you might have. However, with your working with the co-op specialist, you're going to have a little bit more insight and a little bit more hands-on than if you were just a student going up there saying, I need to observe a child. So this internship through the co-op is going to be great for you in working through this project. However, use this paper that I'm providing as a pattern as you conduct your research and you write about your findings, your diagnosis, interventions, and your analysis. This is the following information that you should use for your project paper. You should have an analysis and synthesis, and this is going to include behaviors, grades, work ethics, attitude, etc. Anything that you can tie in and use as an analysis and a synthesis as to why this child does what he does. Your diagnosis. This is going to include the social as well as the academic aspects of that student. Sometimes the brightest student might have social insecurities and social disabilities leading to social awkwardness. The intervention. This is where you will include your IEP. Your IEP is your intervention, okay? These are the suggestions that you have to help the student be able to do better. Then you will include an evaluation, a reflection, where you reflect back on this assignment, this project, this student, and what you thought about it and how you think this particular project would help you later as a classroom teacher. So I want you to go into solid depth of the reflection. And then the last section of this paper will be the artifacts. I want you to label everything with a heading. The first section of your paper should be labeled analysis and synthesis. The second section will be diagnosis. You will have a section labeled intervention, okay? And that's the IEP, remember. And you'll have the section designated as evaluation, a section on reflection, and then the final section is artifacts, and you just begin to scan and upload those artifacts at the end of the paper. Okay, if you have any questions about how to do this project, please call my office or send me an email so that we can visit and discuss this a little more thoroughly. Okay, the final thing, please note that all of these documents, the case sample paper, the assignment sheet document, and the log sheet, excuse me, will be located as of Tuesday morning, will be located right here under additional resources. Okay, thank you for listening to this lecture and discussion on your field experience log sheet and video.